Hello and welcome to the Behind Closed Doors podcast. My name is Alicia Aberley and I'm so grateful that you have joined us in this space. Behind Closed Doors is all about the types of conversations that we only usually have with our best friend, our partner, our counselor, our coach. And sometimes it's the conversations that we don't actually have with anybody else at all. The women that are interviewed in this space are all women that are making a difference to the planet. They're women that are inspiring and empowering. The intention is that you too will feel inspired and empowered by these conversations. So grab a cup of your favorite drink, pop your feet up, and enjoy this episode of Behind Closed Doors. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Behind Closed Doors. Best-selling author of Believe Your Way to Badass, speaker, online fitness coach, self-love, confidence, and mindset mentor, Celeste Rains-Turk is on a mission to help others start building more than just a body by emphasizing the importance of self-love, confidence, mindset, wellness development, behavioral change, modification planning, and long-term success strategies, all coming together with proper training and nutrition programs. Celeste is on a mission to help others be, achieve, and have anything they desire in life, which she believes is 100% possible with the proper focus and mindset. Hello and welcome, Celeste.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Absolutely.
Wow, what a journey you have been on, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have some really great topics to cover off today. We're going to dive into body dysmorphia and body shame. We're also going to have a look at mindset and discipline. And I would love to start off our conversation today with you sharing your incredible win that you just had. Was it last week?
Yeah, it was this past weekend.
Yeah, please share with us.
Okay, absolutely. So I competed in an NPC Bikini competition. It was my second one. My last one was actually in 2015, but this one, I ended up placing fourth in my open class, which was a big win for me. I mean, my goal was not only to bring a better physique, but to get a medal too. And everyone's like, oh, medals don't matter. But for me, I really wanted one. So that was my big win. And I'm just really excited about it.
It was so great to watch you and to see photographs. I didn't know you at the time when you, we weren't friends on social media at the time when you were doing your first comp, but seeing the photographs from then to seeing your body in this space and how you went into this comp, Celeste, like incredible. Your body, I was saying to you before we started this conversation today, that your body was just a beautiful balance. It was not on the scale of too thin and it wasn't on the scale of too big. It was just, you just looked amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're so welcome. It was so great to see a little bit of your mindset journey as well in that space.
Absolutely. Yeah. Crazy.
And so that was a bit different to 2015, right?
Oh yeah. Very, very different. I feel like if I were to compare myself to the competitor I was in 2015, it would be like looking at two different people. It was that drastic of a difference. I mean, I feel like a completely different person.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, excuse me, before the call that when we were talking about the difference in your mindset then, is that you didn't recognize, so body dysmorphia, I have not ever even heard of that until we just had a chat before. You were sharing with me a little bit about that and what that looked for you and the difference in that space. So please, could you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah. So essentially what that means is that you see your body differently than how it actually is. So it literally is just it's a misunderstanding that you're having between yourself and what you see in the mirror. So you're seeing something completely different than what probably everybody else is seeing or what actually is the reality. It's kind of like in those pictures maybe you've seen online where it's like a very thin woman looking into the mirror and seeing a very fat body. And a lot of times you see this with eating disorders and different behavior patterns like that. This comes up. And for me, it came up because when you prepare for a show, you get really lean. And my first show, it was the leanest I had ever been in my life. And I was obviously really proud of myself. I had come so far, and competing is this huge, it's a very disciplined sport. It's something that takes a lot of commitment, energy, effort. It's a daily thing. It's draining, but it's awesome and I love it. It's really rewarding. However, because I achieved this very lean physique, that physique only lasts for that one day. After a water cut, after eating very, very clean, like the water cut, no sodium. So there's a lot of factors that play into actually achieving that look. And I remember after that show, I had a very skewed viewpoint on my aesthetic because I had seen it at its absolute leanest, that now that was the way that I expected myself to be. And as soon as it wasn't that way, I saw myself being fat. I saw myself being overweight, super bloated. I didn't even pay attention to the fact that my physique hadn't even changed that much. But because I had gotten into that craziness in my head, I felt self-conscious. I felt heavy. And I ended up spiraling with that. And it led me to having unhealthy habits after my first show, which caused me to gain over 30 pounds in 3 weeks. Because I was like, oh, I've already lost my show physique, so I might as well just bulk and gain a bunch of muscle and give it up. And I never want to compete again. Like, I just didn't have very good experience the first time around because my mindset wasn't in the right place. And that's so key for success during and after a competition, that because it was off, everything was skewed. I mean, I just wasn't happy in my own skin. I was judging myself. It was almost like I was back to the very beginning of my fitness journey. So that was really hard for me. Versus this time around where it's like, I prepared myself for that going in, and I acknowledged that that's a stage day physique. It's not a everyday physique. Yet I can still stay on track and still achieve like the body that I desire by staying committed to my plan. So I looked at like one of the main shifts I would say is I shifted from seeing it as, oh, I'm prepping for a show to it's just another day in the life, like I'm just stepping on stage today and tomorrow I'm back in the gym. So I think that was kind of like a big shift for me.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. In that space, I think a lot of people experience that. In your experience, it's been in the show, and yet in everyday life, there's ways that we can experience that where we think we're not good enough, where we beat ourselves up, where we expect something to be a certain way. And those expectations that we have can really undo us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm very notorious for setting way too high of expectations. And I think it just like, it keeps me growing, but I understand that completely. Sometimes it can cause us to feel a lot less than what we actually deserve to or should feel for ourselves.
Yeah. And how did you come to realize or recognize that you weren't actually looking the way that you thought you were? Where did you actually come to that? How did you actually come to that point where you realized, hey, look, this, what I'm thinking right now is not actually conducive to where I want to be or exactly who I am?
That's a really good question. I actually don't think I realized it until it was much later, until I looked back at pictures and I was like, I thought I wasn't lean enough. And yet that's the leanest I've ever been in my life. And I remember taking that photo and thinking I was fat and thinking I was carrying too much fat and not appreciating my body or the work that I put in to get there. And so when I looked at it from that perspective, now granted, this was after the fact, so I had to look back to actually realize how unhealthy my outlook was on my body. But so could I say that I wish I would have noticed it as soon as it happened? Of course, but I didn't, and it was a good lesson. But yeah, it wasn't until way later when I looked back on photos and I was like, I can't believe that I thought that I was like that. Like, what the heck? I can't believe I didn't think I was lean enough. Like, that's crazy talk. But that's when I realized it.
Fantastic. And I guess now you can help educate other women that may be going through the same thing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we can really only help others heal and grow and transform at the level of which that we've helped ourselves. Now, I think that given what I've been through, I have a deeper understanding and perspective for other women who are going through that, because like I've been there, I can feel it. I get it.
I've often wondered when I've seen girls, like I take my hat off to any girl who enters a competition, a bikini competition like what you have. I just get in awe sometimes that women can discipline themselves so much to to not eat much, to eat a lot, you know, to really focus on what it takes. And I see women, just as an observer, I'm not, you know, having great friendship relationships with these women, so I don't really have a clue. It's just an outside perspective. What I see is a lot of women seem to go in their first comps on the too skinny side, or they go on the too massive side. And I often wonder, like, it seems like such an obsessive thing for women to do, and getting that balance right seems like, you know, that first comp for most girls that that I've noticed, for most girls, they kind of go, it's kind of out of whack. And then second comp, third comp, they kind of seem to get it right and shift into this space where the body's looking more healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I also think that competing provides a really good opportunity for people to develop unhealthy relationships with food and with themselves, and with working out. And it is an extreme. It is very obsessive. It requires a huge commitment, and you are restricting yourself, and you have to be willing to restrict yourself, and you have to be willing to put in hours in the gym. And it becomes this focus on bringing a really awesome aesthetic. And I think that because, like, the first show, that, you know, a lot of times people haven't even taken the time to look at the mindset of it, or look at, like, the other aspects of it. It becomes so obsessive about the aesthetic that we forget to actually acknowledge the journey on the way. And like, my first show to this show was like, I had to heal my relationship with food before I could even think about doing another show. Like, my first show was like, I had anxiety around food. I was already in an unhealthy relationship with food. It just fueled that. It allowed me to continue that unhealthy pattern. Versus this time, it was like, I committed to it because I wanted to. I was passionate about it. I was excited. It wasn't about food anxiety. It wasn't about not having food freedom. It was literally just because I was committed to the journey and the process and the personal growth that I wanted to experience from it, and taking myself to that next elite level, not fueling an unhealthy relationship, basically.
What do you think was the shift for you from that last time round to this time around? Now that you have a healthier relationship with food, a healthier relationship with yourself, in that in-between space where you were on one extreme of the scale, to now having a consciousness around the mindset it takes, having a consciousness around your relationship with food. What have you done or had to heal in that time frame to get to this space you're in now?
I spent a lot of time working on, well, of course, I spent a lot of time working on my mindset, my relationship with food, without a doubt. But some of the things that I did in that time was I had to let go of control so that I could essentially regain freedom. It's amazing. We restrict ourselves thinking that that's how we have control. But all that does is it makes us want more control. And wanting more control makes us then feel like we need to restrict ourselves more. And it becomes this really terrible cycle. So I had to go, okay, this obviously isn't working for me, right? It isn't working for me to just force myself to be restricted and then binge on the weekends. Like, I was in this very unhealthy pattern of binge and then clean and binge and clean and restrict. And I wouldn't let myself even have a bite, right? So I had to go, what do I need to do to feel free around food, to not feel anxious, to be able to enjoy a bite without feeling like I had to go work out immediately after? So I had to look at that really closely and go, why do I actually feel this way? What am I afraid of? What am I trying to avoid? What am I trying to control in my life? Or where do I not have control in my life? So there's a lot of key questions I think that we have to ask ourselves and can ask ourselves to get to that. I think we all already know exactly what we need. It's just a matter of actually deciding to shine the light on it, you know? So I had to shine the light on it and go, I have to release the need to control every aspect, and I need to just let go. So I allowed myself to start eating the foods that I wanted to, which essentially allowed me to just make healthier decisions based on what my body was telling me it needed. So I was able to tap into my intuition. I was able to really listen to my body and see what it needed. And I didn't force myself to do anything that I didn't want to do, both in the gym and in the kitchen. But with that came some weight gain, and then that came accepting my body changing and accepting that I was on this journey that was much deeper than surface level, which is what I teach all my clients. I essentially had to become my own client and really take myself through that process, because I realized like it was just not right. And I was like, I asked myself, like, would I teach my client to do what I'm doing? Would I have my client living the lifestyle living? And when the answer was no, I realized I had to change something. So finding that balance, finding that freedom really came from releasing the need and surrendering to the fact. Like, the fact is we all have this innate ability within us that was gifted to us as human beings to know exactly what our body needs to function at an optimal level. The only thing is that we've forgotten, or we have basically built up layers around this intuition, layers around this voice, layers around this ability, this actual like human ability, because of social conditioning, because of things that we've been taught, or subconscious wiring and beliefs that have been given to us. I mean, we're controlled by these rules and beliefs and regulations that we think we have to follow, when in reality, we were given this body that tells us exactly what we need, when we need it, and why we need it. So I had to tap into that. Once I understood that, the rest was easy.
Yeah. Isn't it incredible when we do begin to actually listen?
Yeah,
it is. It's a whole other ballgame. I talk about this a lot, moving from, I liken it to, and I say this, I feel like a record right now, moving from headspace and all the noise and the limiting beliefs and all the things that hold us back and all of our patterns and programs, and shifting into heart space. When we shift into heart space, we can actually hear, we can actually feel, we can step into our truth, step into our alignment. And that shift, like, I wish that for the whole planet.
Yes, exactly. And it would. And it's like, are we asking ourselves the right questions, or are we filtering? Like, I even had a client do this recently. It's like, what's your filtration system that you're taking every decision you make through? Is it the rules and regulations that have been given to you, or is it the rules and regulations you've always had within you? Right. And it's like, when you approach the table for food, are you anxious and confused and scared, or just trying to do what you think is best because so-and-so said so? Or is it like, are you approaching it from that space of love for your body and going, is this what I want? Is this going to give me the fuel and the energy that I need while still satisfying my desire to enjoy food? And am I going to feel really good after, or am I restricting myself? Like, what's that meal actually bringing to you and for you? So I think, yeah, it's all about really tapping into that space of what's here, what's within you, versus, well, this noise.
Absolutely. Something else that I love in that space is asking the question, how do I want to feel? So when we go to eat something that like, our body alerts us, right? It's like, oh, you don't really want to eat that. Yes, I do. I do this a lot. It's like my body, it's like, oh, it's just junk. If there's something that's not quite so healthy, and I go, oh, I know my body really doesn't like that, and my mind just goes, yeah, but I want it, and so I'll have it. And then there's that body reaction of, I feel yucky or bloated, or the body's just out of whack. I know now, and have an awareness around that now, that if I choose to do that, I actually, instead of beating myself up by having something that my body doesn't love, I actually have a peace in that I've made that conscious choice to have that. And
yeah.
How do you want to feel? Do you want to feel really great, or do you want to feel shit? And if you, at any point, regardless of what you're eating, you still can feel good. You want chocolate cake? There's no need to beat yourself up by having a piece of chocolate cake. Heck, we should be able to eat whatever we want. From a naturopathic point of view, my dad studied naturopathy, and he said to me that, and I believe this as well, he said, what you think about your food is more damaging than you actually enjoying that piece of food.
100%. Yeah. And even psychology would agree with that, because the psychology says the more that we restrict, there's studies that have been done that are like, the more that we restrict, and through restriction, we have those negative emotions and feelings towards food, in relation to what your dad said. It's like, the more we restrict, the more we actually want. And it shows that the people who restrict more end up having more and feeling worse about it, versus the people who allow themselves to just be open with it. Plus, think of it like this. If you allow yourself to be like, I'm not afraid of any food, it's all good, I can just enjoy it, not going to want it that much, because now it's not like this this attachment to it. It's not about, you no longer crave freedom. you know? So like when you go for that because you've been restricted, it's because you're craving freedom in your life. So that restriction creates this desire for freedom. Now, if you give yourself that freedom straight off the bat, you don't need restriction. You already have the freedom. So now you can choose and you can go enjoy that. And you won't have 10 cookies. You'll have one. You'll feel satisfied. Your body won't hate you that much. You'll just have a slight reaction. And then you'll be like, cool, I'm on my way. And you'll enjoy your next meal.
Yeah. And let's go into comfort eating. I know for myself, and I'm better at it now because I'm so conscious in my mindset practices, that I can be an emotional eater. And I've made peace with that. I know that about myself. So do you work in the space of emotional eating and why people do that?
Yes. Oh, yeah. This is something that I actually love because everyone is very quick to label themselves, right? I'm a binge eater. I'm an emotional eater. I don't even know. I'm a dieter. Right? We all have these identities that we've formed about ourselves.
I'm a vegan. I'm a vegetarian.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You eat that way. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so when it comes to emotions, I mean, there's so much to it, and I think a lot of it is personal and a lot of it comes down to the individual themselves. But the things that I can share right now that I think could be helpful for anyone who might experience this would be to ask yourself what A, you are trying to control in your life, or B, what void you're trying to fill. Usually these are the two things that it boils down to. And another thing is the connections that we have to food. Maybe you have past experiences where your family always cooked cupcakes and that was always on a celebration, so now you turn to cupcakes because it makes you feel good. Where in your life do you not feel good? Because if you label yourself as an emotional eater, it means that you're eating due to emotion versus just the choice to eat and eat for fuel or nutrition or because you want to. So we then have this idea that I am bad because I'm eating emotionally. I am not allowed to do this. This is not right. This is not natural. So we beat ourselves up over it rather than just going, where in my life could I actually fulfill this emotional void? So if you feel lonely and you turn to food, ask yourself, how can I feel less alone? How can I surround myself with things that fulfill me or empower me or make me feel comforted in a way that this food is only providing me for a moment, right? A lot of times we see this and it's all over the media and promotion. Now, I don't ever blame the media for our personal choices. However, I think that it's a shame that it's promoted so heavily that when you break up with someone or when you have a breakup, you turn to a tub of ice cream. It's like, oh, we don't need to do that. But we think, oh, I had a breakup, I'm going to eat all this ice cream. And then we say, oh my God, I'm so bad. I ate all this ice cream and I have a burger. I'm fat. I'm this. I'm lonely. I'm never going to find a boyfriend. It's all this craziness, right? It's like, wow, what if you just let that go? And again, went back to having that freedom to just enjoy it, not connect it to an emotion. The only reason you call it emotional eating is because you're connected to an emotion. But if you can actually address that emotion as from an objective standpoint, as just the emotion itself, eating will not be attached to it anymore. It's just, I am looking at this emotion, I'm going through it, I'm understanding it, I'm allowing myself to feel it. Food covers it up. Food doesn't let you feel it. Food covers it up. It fills that void. Until we go through it and experience it, as you know, it's like, it's always going to be there, right? Food covers it up. When we can release that and let that go and actually go through the emotion, we can enjoy a meal without calling ourselves an emotional eater, right?
I love it. I absolutely love it. I recognized for myself in that space, the last time that it happened for me, I was driving and literally for an hour, this is maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. And since then, since I had that awareness around it, it seems to have dissipated, which was so cool. I was driving along, going from my hometown and heading down 4 hours away doing drive. And I got maybe an hour in my trip, maybe 45 minutes in my trip. And I'm driving along, I'm like, oh, I'd love some McDonald's. And I don't even really like McDonald's. You know, it's not something that we eat. So it's like, actually, I don't like McDonald's. Occasionally I like a McChicken burger, which is probably like the most unhealthy thing you could eat. But anyway, I'm okay. Sometimes if I want one, I'll have one, or they're fine. Yeah. And so I'm driving, I won't beat myself up for it. So I was driving along and it's like, oh, I want McDonald's. And I'm like, no, you don't. So I'm having this discussion with myself in the car for, I reckon, about an hour. And I passed the McDonald's. I'm like, nope, not doing it. And it's like, keep going. Great. I'm so proud of myself. I didn't stop right now. And then it's like, oh, I really want that. And I had this ongoing battle with myself, and I pulled in actually at a servo and stopped and got McDonald's, and I felt like crap after it. And what I realized in that space was that I was feeling lonely. And I was doing something. I was away from my family, and I was going off for a few days. I was going away for, I think, 10 days. And I just had that feeling of loneliness and emptiness within myself. I just wanted to, give myself something and fulfill that and make myself feel better. And when I had that awareness happen, because I've done it many times in my life, when I had that awareness come to my attention, it shifted. So now it's not, it's just not there now. It doesn't appear to be there now, which is great.
Yeah, awareness is always such a key step. If you can even just increase your awareness by 1%, you're already ahead of the game, because now you can catch it when it comes up. It's no longer something that controls you or that you feel out of control of. It's just something that is there, and you can recognize it. And even just knowing that, you can now kind of give it a name and an identity within you. And when it comes up, your dialogue can shift from yes, no, to, hey, little lonely guy up there. Yeah. I recognize how you feel. I understand why you want me to have this, but I'm going to let you know that it's not going to serve me, and it's just not what I'm choosing, but I think I know it could help me. And then you insert a better choice, which may call a friend or listen to music or just do something, but even like you said, awareness, it's just huge. If you're aware, you catch it when it comes up.
Absolutely. And awareness alone can shift anything. It's amazing. Yeah, I love awareness. That's a whole other interview. So let's touch on body shaming. I know that you've had some haters on your social media, and I know that you experienced your own body shame. So let's flip into both of them, from body shaming from other people and body shaming from your own perspective.
Yeah. So I think from my own perspective, it was very related to the body dysmorphia that I had, because once I felt that, then I just started shaming myself for carrying extra fat, or not putting on the muscle, but putting on more fat than muscle, or, am I really losing muscle if I'm burning fat, or, is this what this person said true? And I mean, you kind of get into this questioning phase. And I remember, like, there's been multiple things on social media which they don't bother me, really. I can't say that they bother me. What bothers me is that people go out of their way to say them. I mean, I'd rather be the person who they say it to than someone who can be emotionally harmed by it. So it's good that you can create that space for someone. However, like it would be a lie to say that people don't shame people's bodies. And I think that it's okay to shed a light on this and say, like, people would comment on my stuff and say, oh, you haven't gained any muscle in all the years I've been following you. Or
I saw that one. I saw the guy who
it's like, right. And it's like, okay. And then I get on my YouTube videos and it's like, oh, like, you don't know anything about this, or, oh, you should just kill yourself, and if you experienced this, then you deserve to. And it's like the things that people would say, and you have, like, body shaming and bullying from any perspective, whether or not it's because of the way that you're shaped, because of the goals that you have, because of the things that you believe, it always comes down to taking a step back, reevaluating what your core values and beliefs are, and accepting that that's how you feel. Because if we get caught up in what everybody else is saying and we start accepting that as our truth, that's when it becomes painful, because then we're no longer connected to who we are. So I think that for me, like, it's the same thing when it comes to body shaming ourselves or shaming ourselves. It's not even us at that point, right? It's just this negative voice in our head that lives there to protect us from maybe growth that could lead to change in other areas of our life, which we're subconsciously resisting. Or it is this voice in our head that comes up to tell us like, oh, you're not good enough, or oh, if you start doing this, then this is going to happen. And we just get in our heads, right? And it becomes that dialogue again. And so I think body shaming for myself was very heavily related to how I actually felt about my body and in my own skin. And until I could accept my body for what it was, I couldn't actually change it from a positive state. And the same thing goes when other people said stuff. If it triggered me in some way, I asked myself where I was feeling the same way as they might have felt. So I think that it's up to us to really take a step back when these things come up from other people, to then look within and make sure that we reconnect with our own values and our own beliefs about ourselves, so that whatever comes at us is just like, whatever, like I know what I believe about myself to be true, and I know what is true. And honoring that that person said that to you from a space of love versus hate. So recognizing that it's okay that they chose to say this to me, because I can handle it. Like, I'm very strong, or I'm glad that the universe gave this as an opportunity for me to grow, rather than looking at it from that place of, this sucks, oh my gosh, not again, or people are terrible, the world sucks. Like, the world doesn't suck. The world's not terrible. People are great. It's just like, we see the negatives so strongly from ourselves and from others because it's for protection. So again, awareness. If we can be aware that the only reason why we feel negatively about that is because we're trying to protect ourselves, we can move through that fear, because it's just trying to protect us. So we can actually love it and go, huh, thank you so much for trying to protect me. Now I can grow and move forward. And then the shaming is done, you know?
Yeah, beautiful. I love your viewpoint there, Celeste. That's great. And I think also in that space, I remember when I was 18, vividly, I have this, like I can see, it's like I'm sitting next to myself in this moment. I was working and I was sitting in the waiting room, and my boss used to buy these, or we used to go and get them, like Women's Day and New Weekly, or I don't know what they called, the Who or something. And I remember sitting down and opening up the magazine and flicking through going, oh, she doesn't look good in that. Oh, she's too fat. Oh, and fat now is not even a word in my vocabulary. We don't say that in our household. And my son has never been allowed to say that in our household, because I just find it such a degrading word. And that's my choice. I just think it's overused for the wrong way. So we don't say that. But I remember just going through there, and I remember sitting there in that moment. And I'm so thankful I caught myself in that moment going, wow, like, what are you doing here? And when I looked at it, I just felt so low in self-esteem in myself, and was so uncomfortable in my own skin that I was passing judgment onto these other women that I didn't even know. So from that moment, I made a pact with myself that I would never do that again. And I haven't. Like, it just doesn't happen. That. And if I catch myself, it's so, so rare. But if I catch myself looking at somebody going, why would you wear that? It's like, Alicia, pull your head in. Like, who am I to dictate why somebody, so rare again that would happen now? But it's being conscious in that space, right? We're so opinionated. And who are we to judge somebody else by the way that they look, what they wear? It's a tough enough battle in our own skin, right?
Right. Oh, I love that. That's really cool. I think this is something that always bothers me, is when other people are quick to say things about someone that they see walking by, like, oh, those are weird shoes, or, oh, why would you wear jeans on this day? And it's like, who cares? Like, part of what makes us so amazing and beautiful is that we are so different. But I have to agree with you. I find that I judge a lot more when I'm feeling self-conscious about myself. And again, that just comes from that consciousness of that and recognizing that when it comes up. And then also, to that point, something that really helped me is I find that the more that I give to others and recognize the beauty in them, commenting on their stuff, actually choosing to shift into a place of love and acknowledgement and optimism, allows me to take myself out of that for myself. I mean, it's amazing. Like, if we can give that to other people, there's no doubt we can give it to ourselves. And I find, like, the more that I'm connected with other women, especially, and I'm commenting or I'm sharing or empowering them, the more empowerment that we can start feeding ourselves within. So that's something, like, in terms of shifting from that judgmental space to a more grateful space, that was and is really helpful for me.
Yeah, nice. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
So what would you say are your biggest mindset and discipline practices for you?
Definitely would say gratitude. If I can recognize everything that I'm grateful for every day, from the littlest things to the biggest things to future successes that I seek to have, like actually being grateful for things that I don't have yet. That way I can feel like I'm actually in that space. That helps me then shift to that next level identity. So that's like the second piece for me, is always checking in that I am functioning from my higher identity and catching myself when I'm not, and asking and creating that kind of check-in point of, is this something that my next best self would do? And then if it's not, making sure that and I do what actually it would do. And then the third thing that I think is the most important is self-love, because I really believe that when we love ourselves, then we're able to give more love to the world, and then we'll receive more love as well. So the way that I practice this mostly is, and it's interesting because like a lot of times when we hear self-love, we think affirmations. Affirmations are great, but I'm a huge believer in actions being more important than affirmations. It's kind of like if you're in a relationship with anybody else, you know, they can tell you they love you, but until they actually show you, you question it. So I think something that's really helpful for me is asking myself, how do I receive love best? And then I give myself that form of love. So I know there's like a book on the 5 love languages. I've actually never read it, but I know of the 5 love languages. So I think it's really cool if you can ask yourself, like, of these love languages, which one do I like to receive best? Give that to yourself. And that's been huge for me. I stopped questioning when I want a massage. Like, I'll just like get it for myself. Even if I get a discount one, I'm still happy that I made that investment in myself. Or going on a walk or taking a nap. Really just checking in and asking myself, what do I feel right now? Honoring those feelings and then giving myself what I need. That's like a huge practice every single day. It's a non-negotiable because it keeps me in the present moment. It keeps me functioning at a higher identity, and it keeps me grateful for who I am and the path that I'm on.
Beautiful. Whoa, love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
Is there anything else that you would love to share with our amazing listeners today?
No, that's really it. I think that we covered so much, and I'm just grateful for them to be listening. And I really hope that they benefited from this or can share this with people who can.
Yeah, the right people will have got what they needed.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this space. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you, Celeste.
You as well. I love it. This was one of my favorite interviews ever. I mean, really, I had so much fun smiling the whole time.
Yeah, me too. It's like, I need to massage my cheek.
I know.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to each and every single person that has listened in with us today. Catch you next week. Bye.